Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Reports. Super excited for my returning guest today, Rafal Tomal, lead designer at Copyblogger, somebody who I've been following ever since I can remember looking at the first few Genesis themes and StudioPress themes all the way till today. Somebody I highly respect in the WordPress community, not just designers, but as a person, as a WordPress user, as a community member. We're going to talk about his new book, The Essential Web Design Handbook, and we're going to get into sort of the nitty-gritty of, you know, if you are a seasoned designer or a new designer, just, you know, you just discovered WordPress 3 months ago and you're like, how do I get my head around this? We're going to talk about the essential stuff that you need to know about web design, and he is the guy to tell us about that. This is part of the web design series that I'm doing on the Matt Report. It's a story arc for these next few episodes. We're talking to people who are either ready to launch a new site, and they're talking to me saying, okay, here's how I set my budget. Here's how I thought about my brand. Here's how I'm going to measure ROI. So we're talking to people who are just setting out. Now we're talking to people who are also the service providers for those website launches. So people who are handling $5,000 to $10,000 projects, people who are handling $50,000 projects, people who are designing on Shopify and not even WordPress, right? We're starting to broaden that experience here at the Matt Report. And I really hope you're enjoying it. If you want to stay connected, it's mattreport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list. It's the number one way to stay connected. If you do enjoy the show, I'd always like to beat out Rafal's boss, Brian Clark, who runs his own podcast. So head on over to iTunes and give me a 5-star review. Help us get found. Without further ado, Rafal, for those folks who don't know you, which I don't know how they don't know you by now, but give folks the 2-minute elevator pitch of who you are and what you do.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me again on your show. So I am the lead designer at Copyblogger Media. I design websites for the company. So all of our websites, you see copyblogger.com, studiopress.com, Web Synthesis, all of them are designed by me, and I also lead design for our projects like Rainmaker platform and other plugins. I'm not anymore too into StudioPress themes, but I'm still the lead designer for the entire company.
That's great. Before we get into the book, and I should have prefaced this before we started the show, but you just reminded me about the Rainmaker platform. For those folks who don't know, it is a hosted solution from the folks over at Copyblogger. It gets all of the fun stuff that we normally experience with WordPress, putting it together ourselves, like, lead funnels and memberships and e-commerce and blogging, sort of all rolled into one in some nice simplistic hosted platform. My question to you as a designer, Rafal, was it a different methodology for designing that product versus your typical WordPress theme? In other words, did you have to put on a different thinking cap to approach that project versus a WordPress theme?
It was definitely the biggest project I've made so far. And there were so many people involved in working on Rainmaker platform. So I think the only difference was that I wasn't the only one. It wasn't like one-man show anymore. I had to work with a few developers. I talked to some other people about the user experience, usability. So we had to put together all those different pieces of puzzle and make sure it all works together very well. So, and it's been a very big project. We've been working for few very solid months before we even had a beta version of the platform.
Do you remember one big challenge, maybe with the developers, when you designed something and the developers just said, "No way can we do this. This is just way too intense of a design." Did anything like that come up?
Yes, there were a lot of limitations when it comes to designing interface for Rainmaker platform, because we didn't it's based on WordPress, of course. So we didn't rewrite the entire HTML markup. We based everything on WordPress markup. So we had to stick to the same layout, to the same position of elements. So there were many limitations. I couldn't just do everything I wanted. We had to stick to the base core of what WordPress already has.
Yeah. And then for the themes, I guess, and maybe you guys don't call them themes on the Rainmaker platform, but are designing themes easier now that you control the platform, or just the same in the sense of a WordPress theme?
No, I think it's the same. If you are a Genesis developer and you've been working with Genesis child theme for a while, I'm sure there will be no problems for anyone to create something for Rainmaker platform. It's basically the same thing, same rules. It might be a little bit different if you design a custom theme for a client. Then you need to think more about making everything, how to say that, to make sure everything is connected with Rainmaker functionalities. So there are many things in Rainmaker that you never seen anywhere outside of the platform. So you need to make sure your code, your design goes well with, for example, podcasts or e-commerce functionalities or membership stuff. So it takes a little bit of time, to get used to it. Same thing like for developers who start working with Genesis framework. It takes time to get used to all those hooks and be more familiar with the framework. But once you know it, then it's all much easier and much faster to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's transition into the storyline topic. And I sort of introduced the context before that in this story arc, we're talking to everybody that's involved in the web design process, right? We're talking to the person who actually is out looking for a designer, right? So I interviewed Jason Resnick, and he talked about how he set his budget, how he looked for designers, how he sort of interviewed them, and what his goals are for the site. And I talked to other designers who are building the solution for these folks, right? So we talk about from that angle, right? How they negotiate the prices, how they set the goals for their clients, that kind of thing. Today, I'm interested to talk to you about the designers who are in the audience, hearing all of my other stories, right? So they've heard the story about how the person interviews them, how they set the budget before they go to talk to them. The person who's listening to this, listen to Carson talk about a $50,000 plus project and how he handles and scales that. So now that they've got the ammo to understand the business side of things, what about the design part of this? What about the designer who's listening to this going, I've only been doing WordPress design for the last year, and maybe I'm really not designing from scratch. Maybe I'm using a Genesis starter or the Genesis starter theme, and I'm tweaking some font choices and I'm tweaking some background colors. From the book, let's just go head on with the problem. What do you think the number one thing is that designers should know before they dive into a project, dive into a new web project?
I think a good research is very important before you even start a project. So you want to find out for who you want to design your website for. You want to know who is your audience. And the second thing is you want to find out what functionalities you need in your design, what style those people may like. So I think all those part of the research part and discover part is very important in the beginning.
Let's take a look at how you do that process. In the beginning of this story arc for us, I interviewed Angie Meeker, and we spent 2.5 hours on a Google Hangout doing a discovery project or a standard discovery process for one of my products called Conductor Plugin. And I've certainly edited the show down by this point. I'm sort of talking about myself in the future. So it's kind of weird, but we spent 2.5 hours, and I've probably broken down that system into 3 different podcasts for folks to listen to. But before we even started discovering who our client was, we spent about 45 minutes dissecting who I was, right? Who I was as the business owner, what my product meant to the market, and what our values were. And we listed all that stuff out on paper, and we sort of built a little storyline for myself and then we built the storyline for who our potential customers are. Is that similar to you? Do you have like a technical process that you run through, like by starting by writing something out on a grid? Like, what does that look like?
It's also, you mentioned that you start by defining like who you are and what you want your product to be. It's the same. I think it was also very important to set a goal for your website. Like, what's your goal of your website? If you want to get more just signups, or if you want to sell a product, or is it more informational website? So all the stuff, like setting goals and knowing where do you want to go before you start the journey. So I think this part is also very important. But in my book, I described more the practical way. I talk more about how it looks from the practical point of view. So when it comes to design, I focused more on showing people that you should make some sketches first and visualize your ideas, not only writing them down and thinking about them too long. You can sketch everything. It helps a lot to visualize your ideas and look at them from different perspective when you actually see them on a paper. And when you have a pen and paper, you have all that flexibility in creating whatever you want. You are not limited to any HTML markup, or what can you do, or what you can't do in Photoshop. You can just come up with as many ideas as you want, and you can think about them, show them to someone. You can discuss them with your team. So I found sketches as one of I think it's my first step in my designing process.
Sure.
So it is very, very efficient.
Yeah. I do know, I know for a fact, because you and I spoke sort of off air about how much work went into creating this book, from your, from the research, from the writing it, of course, and illustration and things like that. But I do know that you recently, by recently, I think in the last year is when you did the redesign of your main website. Is that true? Has it been a year since you've had this newer design?
I think I redesigned it maybe less than a year. I think we redesigned it in September or August, something like this.
Right.
And I moved my own website to Rainmaker platform, by the way.
Okay. All I know is I get lost in playing with the menu, right? I just love clicking on the menu and watching it animate. It's just, I could do it all day long. When you redesigned the site, what did that process look like? I mean, how long did it take you to go from sketch to design for your own website?
Oh man, that's designing your own website is always the hardest project you ever going to work on. If I told you that the Rainmaker platform was the biggest project, I lied to you, because my own website was probably a bigger project than that. And Brian Gardner is a witness to this, because I showed him a few concepts and just wanted to get his feedback on my design. We often share our designs whenever we are working on personal projects or company projects. So he knows how many different concepts I had for my own website. So when it comes to design something for yourself, you need to think more about how do you want other people to see you, and I think what's your brand and how you want to show as a person. That's a lot of different thinking than when you work for a client. Work.
Did you know that you were going to be, at the time that you were redesigning the site, or at least starting to plan out the site, had you known you were going to launch the ebook? Was that already in the works at the same time?
Oh yeah, when I was pretty close to finish the book, I was thinking, like, I can't launch the ebook on that ugly website. I have to redesign it. So, and everyone told me, your website is very good. The design looks great. And many people ask me if I'm going to replace my design, can I just make it turn it into a theme and give it for free or something like that. But I was so embarrassed of my old design that I just wanted to replace it before I release the book.
So did you, when you launched that, or when you launched the book, did you have, or excuse me, when you launched the new website, had you already started like sketches and layouts for the ebook pages as well?
Yeah, I've been working on my book for a very long time. So, and I had it almost done, I think in like June or July. Then I had a few months break because, there was so much to prepare for the baby. I know we had to buy a lot of stuff, and I thought I would launch this book much sooner, but because of all of that stuff, I had to take a few months break, and then I got back to book. So after a few months, when you get back to the old project, you want to rewrite everything, and of course, redo almost every single page. So it took me a while again to redo everything until I finally decided that this is the final version, and I'm going to launch it in December, which didn't happen. Of course, I launched in January.
Yeah, as always, it's the way it always happens. When you get into the once you start getting into the book and you get past the preparation of design work, you start getting into, I guess this falls in the same category of preparation. It's the ideas and inspiration, right? You have an entire chapter on that. That ideas and inspiration for me is, I love it and I hate it at the same time, because I will get lost in like looking at other areas to get inspired from, always thinking of new ideas along the way. So how do you kind of wrap your head around that in the book? How do you instruct us to sort of look at ideas and inspirations from around the web?
So, I think more about getting inspired, more like a sprint run. So you don't want to spend too much time on it, and you don't want to, to look at other websites for a week or 2 weeks, because then you get, so many different ideas, and every time you look at the new design, you will think that this is better than the previous one, and you'll be inspired by something new every time you look at it. So I would suggest to spend like 1 day or 2 days, no more, and browse a few different websites, some websites that are similar to what you are working on in the context, and some websites that are similar in design, that what you want to achieve. So if you gather some of different websites and maybe make a few quick sketches just to get just to save some ideas from all those websites, and then before you start designing, close all those inspirations and look only at your sketches, and start designing only as you remember those projects, not how the worst idea is to have another project open in another window and look at, by looking at this project, work on your own. So, you will be influenced too much by one design, and you will be always, thinking about changing something, not to copy this design. So I would suggest to close everything and have all your sketches, in front of you, so you can process all of those ideas, all those screens you saw, through your own thinking, and incorporate some of your own experiences before you start designing it.
That is ridiculously amazing advice. I love the thinking of it as a sprint runner, because that's exactly what I do. Like I will give myself give yourself a week to kind of research all these things, and then you know what, give myself another week so that I can really refine this. And then when I get into it, I'm by no means a designer, but when I'm just even when I'm just tweaking things on my blog, it's like I'm tabbing between another site where I really love the typography, and I'm just like, boy, that looks good, and I'll just go and I'll edit mine a little bit, then I'll go back and look at theirs, is that spacing exactly the same, and go back to mine and do it again. But no, shutting all that stuff out is amazing.
And that's the difference between working for a client and when you work on your own project.
Right.
Because when you work for a client, you have a budget. You don't want to, spend too much time on on browsing different websites because you want to get the project done in a certain amount of time.
Right.
And when you work on your own personal project, you feel like you have, the whole time in the world to work on the project. So, it extends to weeks and months of research and browsing and, getting inspired.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another great piece of advice right there, is sort of treating your own internal project as a client project. There's a deadline, there's a budget. There's only so many resources you can throw at the discovery process before you have to get to actually doing the work. So that's great stuff.
And so when I redesigned my website last time, I tried to do everything like I would do for a client. I start by getting some, by looking at some inspirational designs. I designed typography, I designed colors, I made some wireframes. And then I made full mockups in Photoshop before I started coding. So I only made some few changes while coding the theme, but I went through all this process I described in my book, and that I would always do for a client. And I discovered that this just worked great, and I did my redesign. The last concept I took, and I decided to go this way. Then it took me not so long.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What does design environment mean to you? Is it like a way to get sort of in the mood to design? Is it like a mental state? Is it something that you do with software, or is it something totally different?
The moment you open Photoshop, you will start, at least I'm talking from my perspective. I know I'm going to start doing some magic in my Photoshop, and everything since I've opened Photoshop, everything I make, will have some final influence on something. So to me, having a good design environment, having everything set up in a specific way is very important. Not just to do your job, faster and more efficient, but also, like you said, it's more like a ritual. And I see everything on my screen, and then I switch to the design mode, and then I know I'm gonna start my work.
Yeah, it is great advice. I mean, I think a lot of people are sort of, I'm doing this series of blog posts right now, and it's actually something that I might eventually just turn into like a free ebook, or just some kind of like structured onboarding to the concept of running a WordPress business. And right now I've sort of looked at 4 different characters of WordPress business owners, one of them being called the cobbler, the person who's just repairing shoes, the artist, somebody who's doing really great work that is sought after, right? People are like, hey, I definitely want to hire you. Like, I heard your work is phenomenal. And then the other 2 characters are more sort of when the business scales, and that's the boutique boss man. That's the person who is, running a small agency. They sort of have to remove themselves from the workman's role, because now they have to run a business, they have to hire people, they have to, build the business. And they're not coding and designing day to day. And then there's the digital maven, somebody who is, okay, now we've built this service business, and now I want to sell product. Like, I want to discover this other channel of revenue. But I want to talk about the cobbler versus the artist, and I would very much categorize you as the artist. And I think the biggest difference between the cobbler and the artist is the cobbler will just take anything, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's certainly a business that they've carved out for themselves. Like I always relate it to the $500 client. There's nothing wrong with a $500 client if you're profitable and both parties are happy. It just very rarely do I see a very happy engagement of $500 because either one person wants more than the other and that kind of thing. But what do you think it takes for the person to kind of break out of being the cobbler and sort of becoming the artist? If you can kind of wrap your head around that concept.
I think, it's more like how you see yourself and what do you think your own personal brand is. Like I decided when I recently redesigned my website, I decided to brand myself as someone who teaches design. So I'm not only designer. I want to show people that I will teach design, and they will always, they can always come to my website and they will find some helpful resources, and they can learn about design. So that moment I decided to be, like a teacher. I think it also positioned me as an expert in this area because, people see that I teach someone else, and so I must know something more about design than just, doing work. So, I think that's one thing. Like once you start teaching, then you can position yourself more as someone who can, who is on a much higher position in the hierarchy of all of designers around there. So I would always recommend to everyone to start your blog, start writing about your design process, and sharing your information, and this will rise your authority, and you will position yourself as a not just a designer that does work for $500, but someone that can provide much more value.
Right. Let's sidestep for a moment away from the book and talk about maybe even your path to becoming the digital maven, right? Somebody who wants to sell a digital product. You have your quote unquote, you have your day job, but then you've got this other product, and yours being the very ebook that we're talking about today. What has this process been like as you've sort of transitioned from the day job to the teacher, and now you are positioning the product for sale? Have you learned anything along this way that you can share with the audience? I mean, granted, you have ridiculously great mentorship and experience for being at Copyblogger, because they've been teaching us all about this stuff for many years, many years now. But what has your journey been like, going from the artist to the digital maven? Your thoughts on this whole selling an ebook, building a community, growing an audience, that kind of thing.
I think I was just tired of working for clients and doing all the custom websites. But also, like you said, I've been working for Copyblogger for over 4 years now. So, I'll have to be blind and deaf not to, be influenced by all those marketers, and not to start my own blog and thinking about writing a book and teaching people design. So to me, that was a natural process. Like I've learned a lot from my colleagues at Copyblogger, and I know it works. I know, they are experts in this field, so they know what they are talking about. So I'm glad I can learn from them. Everyone can learn from them if you sign up to my Copyblogger or read Copyblogger blog. That's the way how I learn from them. And starting, when I was thinking like what else I can do beside my day job, there were two options. Maybe there were more options, but to me were like two options. I can do more custom freelance projects for clients, which I definitely didn't want to do, or I can start, something like a new hobby, so that was like third option. So I could start something new, something something else than design. But of course, design is to me is my hobby, is my passion, is my job. So I was thinking only about design. So to me, it was pretty natural that I can start teaching design. I can start sharing my experiences, sharing some free resources, and see what happens. If I can grow a community around my website, if anyone will be listening to me, if anyone will be interested in what I have to say. And I have gathered over 5,000 people in my email so far, so I think it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you have that fear of people not caring what you have to say? Did that ever cross your mind?
Oh yeah, the time when I hit publish on my sales page for the ebook, I felt embarrassed, and I felt scared. Like I felt embarrassed because I thought I'm launching something bad. There's there might be some bad information, or I mislead someone to something wrong. And I was scared of what people say. If people will hate it, or someone will change opinion about my work and how I design. But the moment I start getting positive feedback and I start getting some first reviews, I felt so relieved, and then I knew that I did the right thing, and that was a good choice.
Yeah, I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad that you were afraid to hit publish, because God, I feel that same way with everything I do, and for somebody who's so talented like yourself, feeling embarrassed to actually put this out into the wild is, to me, I'm like, wow, this is beautiful, and to you, you're like, boy, I don't think this is up to snuff enough to even release. It's just a concept that doesn't escape anybody. Like, no one is, invincible to this sort of self-doubt and fear. And it's just, it consumes all of us, and it's just getting past that is what allows us to really shine. And, when I was talking to everybody else in this series and all the entrepreneurs that I talk to, it's like, it's that 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20. And if you don't show up to play and hit those home runs, every 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20, you will never feel that level of success, and everybody strikes out. And this is just the nature of the game. Did you ever? Are there any stories of maybe talked to Brian Gardner or Brian Clark or maybe somebody else on the team and showed them what you were doing? Did you get any helpful pointers from them along the way that you can share?
I wanted to do everything myself. That was one of my mistakes. And I wrote the book, I designed it, I wrote my sales page copy, I designed the sales page. So I was trying to do everything myself just because I wanted to try everything and see, if I can do this. And I had I had this whole idea in my head how I wanted to look, and so I didn't want anyone to influence me on anything and change my ideas. But I know it was a mistake. I should probably hire someone to write a good sales page copy, not to try to do everything myself. And that was also one of the reasons why it took me so long to finish it. So to answer your question, I told Brian about the book I'm launching. I think like a few months before I launched it. So it was almost done, and we just talked about. I just told him about my idea and how it all looks. So, but I didn't ask for any advice, and I was focused on doing everything myself.
Yeah. I mean, so many of us are, and it's funny. It's folks like you and I who are working with clients or have worked with clients. We try to get them to buy into our own process. Like that's like 70, 80% of the battle. Like before you get to the actual work part of it, it's like, here's how we do this. It's discovery, it's wireframing, it's testing, it's launch, it's testing again. Like this is the process we have to do. And we sort of wrestle with our clients sometimes because they just want to skip a certain phase, or they just want to go right into design or design in browser, that kind of thing. We're like, no, you have to follow this. But then we do our own internal projects and we're like, I'm just going to do everything myself. I'm not going to reach for that outside help, which is what people are doing when they hire us. They need that help. It's just so funny that we think we can do everything, and at the same time we're telling our clients like, no, you can't do everything. Give it to us. If you want the best result, give it to us.
And I realized when I launched my ebook, I realized how important copy is, like how important it is to hire a good copywriter. I thought like I would make this, beautiful ebook. I would put it out there. And I thought like no matter what I say, people would buy it because, the ebook looks nice. And, I listed all those cool, chapters with covers for every chapter, with illustrations. But I know that was another hard lesson I learned, that it's not that easy, that people won't buy, will not buy your book just by looking at your cover. They you need to convince them, and you need some very good copywriting about your book, just so they can know better like what's inside, and you want to sell, when you release a product, you want to sell as many copies as you can, and so that should be your goal.
Yeah. Let's talk about that real quick. What took more time in this entire process? Was it the actual, writing of the book, or was it the illustrations, or was it like 50-50? Like what did you spend more time on when you were crafting this book?
No, the illustrations didn't take too long, just because I drew them all at once, and I made them more as a icon set, which I share for free in my designers area. So then I just use different icons and to put together illustrations. There are some custom illustrations I made specifically for a chapter or something to illustrate something specific. But all of other illustrations I just use different icons and I put them together in a certain way.
Yeah. What's the rough? How long was it in writing? Was it 2 months? Did you say, or is it more than that?
Oh, in writing, I started writing this book like 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So it's hard to estimate, because I started writing a little bit different book. I was started writing about the design process. Then I had an idea that I could show more from the practical point of view, show more how I design a real site, not just to talk about the process. There are just too many books about the process, not too many books that show real work, and what the steps I take to complete the final design. So I changed my idea back then. So I had to rewrite some parts. Then I had a few long breaks, like I told you before. Then after every couple months break, when I came back to my book, I had to rewrite almost every single part, and I designed a few different layouts for the book too. So it was more like I'm not regretting any of this time. It was to me it was a learning process. Right. I learned a lot. I love reading about design, so I had to also read a few books about layout, colors, and typography, just to refresh my knowledge, just to get some new ideas for my chapters. So it was all fun project. It was more like a fun project, and I wasn't so concerned about getting it done I didn't have like a deadline or something like this. I was just thinking I didn't want to be stressed about finishing the book by some time. I just thought whenever I finish this, I would put it out there, and I want to make sure it's the best thing I can make.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you keep track of all your chapters and stuff like that? Was it just Evernote or Google Docs? What did you use to kind of keep yourself organized?
I use Google Docs a lot. Yeah, I started in Evernote, then I moved to Google Docs, just because Evernote was much harder to use on iPad.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I think Evernote app is much better now, probably. But back then, I found Google Docs much easier to use my iPad.
Yeah, so you'd be writing chapters on your iPad, at a coffee shop or something.
Yeah, and I had my Apple keyboard, which was much more convenient than typing on the screen.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's great. There's two more things that I want to just chat about real quick, and then we can close up the interview and tell folks where they can grab this amazing book. At the bottom of your website, you have two personal projects, Typespiration and Gridspiration. Can you talk to us about that? Because I don't think that was around when I first interviewed you. What is that all about?
Yeah, so Gridspiration was just a quick idea to organize some of the most popular Dribble tags. I come to Dribble almost every day. I visit this website and I browse different designs. I'm trying to be up to date with what other designers are working on, and I always go to search or tags, and I look by flat design or by drawings, all of that stuff that interests me. So I thought it'd be much easier. So the first idea was to do this just for myself. It would be just much easier to if I have a website where I can categorize all of those Dribble images in by tags, so I can click on it and preview some new images faster. And that's what Gridspiration is about. It just faster way to browse Dribble. And Typespiration is more interesting because I'm working right now on a big relaunch of this website, and I'm redesigning the entire website, of course, and I'm planning to do much more with this website than there is right now. So it'll be very interesting. I will post more information on my blog when I have something more to show.
Nice. So basically, in its usable state right now, it's folks can go there to typespiration.com and they can kind of look at these type examples, right, to get some inspiration. You also provide the CSS code there so that they can kind of see how it's formed, and you name the fonts and the color schemes and things like that.
That's the whole idea of Typespiration, and I was amazed how well it was received by my audience. People loved that I provided CSS for all this typography. You know, I saw many people using the CSS code, copying the code to their own website and using it on the live sites, which was very interesting. So I just want to make it better this time.
How much, and one of the final questions here, how much planning and design went into the original version of Typespiration? It's one of these things that just like happened and you're like, oh my God, everybody loves this thing.
I know I had this idea one day and I decided to spend a weekend on this project. And I even wrote a blog post on my website where you can read how I made it. I pointed out some of the most difficult parts of how to do something like I did with Typespiration, like what plugins I use for membership, because there's a membership, you can sign up and you have your own account. It's all based on WordPress, of course. So you know, there were a few different plugins I had to customize. I had to connect together to make it all work.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's like those things that we spend, you know, months planning and prepping ourselves for, and then the most shared and the most attractive things come in, like, you know, you get the idea in the shower and then you go and you tweet it out and everybody's like, yeah, do it. And then you do it and you're like, oh God, that took like 2 seconds. Yeah, not that this took 2 seconds, but you get the idea. Yeah,
the day I launched Typespiration, or maybe a few days later, Smashing Magazine tweeted it. So yeah, it got, you know, and back then I didn't have a system to like automatically create accounts automatically for all those people.
Right.
So when Smashing Magazine tweeted it, I got like 300 or 400 people, you know, sending me a new message using contact form to create them account, and they were interested to join the Typespiration. So I wrote a quick script to automatically sign them all up in WordPress and create an account for them, so they could, you know, log in and use it. But that was crazy. Like, you know, I didn't expect that at all. I was thinking like there will be like 20 people maybe after a few months, so I can, you know, prepare. I can write a good script for automatic logins and registrations, all of that stuff. But it, you know, hit me very, very hard in the beginning.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff, and it looks great, and I'm excited to see. Definitely keep us. I'm sure you will keep us in the loop when that launches, or when the preview comes out, because I'd love to see where you're going with that. There you have it, folks. I mean, just an amazing discussion, you know, with Rafal, one of my favorite designers on the face of the earth, in the galaxy, in the universe. One day when I have a custom project that I'm going to hire Rafal on, I'm just going to nonchalantly drive a Porsche up to your house, leave it there, and say, here you go, buddy. Just, you know, when you have time, you want to redesign my site, here's a Porsche. It doesn't have to be today. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. But yeah, so if you want to do that, definitely go and check out. Oh, man, I'm going to have to edit this. Laughing at my own joke, and I started choking. All right, so now I have to write this down. Hold on 1 second. Damn it. 48 minutes. All right, let's get back into this. So that is at 48:30.
Yep.
And I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to restart that. All right, it's just been an amazing discussion with my friend Rafal, one of the most inspiring designers for myself in the WordPress community. Does an amazing job with everything he touches. He is, the golden child in my book, and he does amazing stuff. Check out this book. It's 200 pages filled with everything you need to know, everything that we're covering in the story arc, everything that we're talking about as web designers, as somebody who might be jumping into even I think somebody who's about to design a website for themselves would be smart to pick up a book like this, even if they're never going to write the code themselves or draw the pixels themselves. I think prepping themselves to understand what we are thinking, either as an agency or a freelancer or as a consultant, getting this knowledge under our belts is only going to make the process smoother and better. Definitely check it out. Not only is it a great designed book, it's going to have tons of information in there for you. Rafal,
that was the best ebook promo I ever heard. I need to hire you to write my sales copy.
I know. I should open up. So that's one of my that's my 2-second idea, right? So it's like all of a sudden, hey, that's a great pitch. Maybe I should just do pitches for WordPress products. Rafal, where can folks find this on the web so that folks can purchase it and pick it up?
You can go to my website, and you can. I think Matt will post a link on his website in notes or somewhere. And I would recommend to click that link because you will get 20% off on my ebook in the first 7 days since this show is published. So I would recommend to go there, click that link, and you will be redirected to my ebook sales page where you can buy the ebook.
Yep. And if nothing at all, go to the site, rafaltomal.com, and just play with the menu. Just click it. Just watch the animation up, down, up, down.
And now I'm wondering if this animation maybe lower my conversion rate because I'm spending too much time on playing with the menu.
I just like when you click it and you're like, wow, that was cool. Let me just do that again. And then you just get lost in doing that. So everything looks great there. Everyone go check that out. Where can folks find you on Twitter so they can tweet to you and say thanks for doing the show?
Yeah, you can find me at Rafal Tomal on Twitter. So you can tweet me, and you can also find me on Google+. Just type my first name, last name, and you will find me.
It's great stuff, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Everybody else, you know the drill. It's mattreport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list so that you know when shows like this come out and when special deals from our friends like Rafal are sending us discount codes. Like he said, I'll have that linked up in the show notes. For the next 7 days, you'll be able to get his book for 20% off, and I highly, highly recommend it. Other than that, 5-star review in iTunes would be awesome, like I mentioned at the top of the show. And if you are a WordPress business owner, you are somebody who's running a digital business on WordPress, and you just want to find other people who are talking about this stuff, helping each other out on monthly calls, mastermind calls, check out mattreport.com/join. Join the pro membership. It's a couple $100 for the year, but it gets you access to a bunch of WordPress folks like us, and we're talking about this stuff in the forums and on those live calls every month. Until then, everybody, we'll see you next time.